issuing Invest Fort Lauderdale 2019. To kick things off, I'd like to thank the staff of the Riverside Hotel for coming in so early this morning to set up this beautiful venue for us. Well, last night was a little chilly as we attended Christmas on Las Olas. I'd like to tell you, it was pretty comfortable for me. I'm from the finance department of Capital Analytics, and we're located in the cold northeast of Philadelphia. When I think of the other markets we cover, such as Atlanta, Fort Lauderdale, Orlando, Tampa, Philadelphia, I'm reminded of how critical a role Fort Lauderdale and the greater Broward area played in the growth of our company. We have found that South Florida in general fosters an ecosystem of business growth, is welcoming to new ideas, new companies, and new people. The area's leadership has shown great prowess in this one of the most advantageous places to live, work, and play. Today's discussion will be a reflection of that upward momentum, from how the marine industry continues to propel Broward County's economic growth, to how smart development is transforming Greater Fort Lauderdale into the area of the future. After today's discussions, our reports will be presented to you as you leave for the first time. While the finished product is a polished, sleek, well-rounded 200-page report, a lot of hard work goes into making it the most comprehensive business report on Broward County. I'd like to thank our team that continues to grow for their dedicated effort. I'd also like to thank the more than 250 local CEOs our team meets with each year who are generous with both their time and information, and the many sponsors that make our magazine as successful as it has been. I'd also like to thank our sponsors today, AARP, BB&T, Brightline, City National Bank, City of Lauderdale, City of Pompano Beach, Cyrus Energy, First Service Residential, Greater Fort Lauderdale Alliance, Greater Fort Lauderdale Chamber of Commerce, Green Spoon Martyr, John Knox Village, Riverside Hotel, Secor, and Las Olas Company. It is with your support we're able to continue our good work. Thank you very much. And now, please help me welcome Abby Maloney, President of Capital Analytics, to the stage.
Thank you very much, Al. And good morning. What a packed house. You guys are great. Thanks so much for being here. Honored panelists, distinguished guests, thank you for being here today to celebrate the second edition of Invest Fort by Greater Fort Lauderdale. I cannot express how delighted I am in releasing our second edition. Covering Broward County was an important step for our company. Since expanding here, we've continued our statewide development, adding markets like Palm Beach, Tampa, Orlando. The success of this expansion is a testimony to the state's ambitions to be a true global player and the investment destination of choice, both domestically and internationally. Capital Analytics is now truly able to showcase the diversity of this great state in the 5 and growing reports we now have. And what a diverse market we have here. This year's Invest Greater Fort Lauderdale report once again highlights the Broward market as a high-value business and investment destination, bolstered by its unique blend of sunshine, sand, culture, food, sports, and much, much more. With booming real estate, a bustling marine industry, an innovative startup community, a favorable tax climate, attracting droves of residents and businesses, and city and county leaders focused on sustainability, the future looks bright, and for this emerging global city. This year's book has developed our coverage on the county overall, encompassing new chapters on the city of Lauderdale and the city of Pompano Beach, taking a deep dive into the municipality's developments and how they are attracting businesses to move to town. We also have expanded our coverage on transportation, looking at the impact of new projects like Brightline, or the continued development surrounding the airport. Before I introduce our first panel, I wanted to mention that I consider myself honored to work with such an amazing team at Capital Analytics. No work this in-depth can be done alone, and I have with me some of the most dedicated, intelligent, hardworking people I've ever worked with. And for that, I thank you all. So now I would like to introduce Erica Knowles, Executive Director for Invest Greater Fort Lauderdale, who will be introducing our keynote.
Good morning, everyone. Again, my name is Erica Knowles. I'm the Executive Director of Invest Greater Fort Lauderdale and as well as Invest Miami. And I have the honor of introducing the new president of Broward College, President Gregory Allen Hale. One of the things that when we invited people to come to this event, and we told people that Gregory was our keynote speaker, everyone was like, "Oh, my friend, yeah, I definitely am coming." So it's great to have a friend in the room, a friend that is a friend of everyone here. And one small note is, Greg, if you want to get something for Greg, get something with a bee. He's a new collector of bees. And I thought that was just such an interesting fact. He had a quick story. He had bees in the walls of his home. And he wanted to get rid of these bees because they were, of course, you don't want to have bees in your walls. And then as soon as he got rid of them, he went out and bought more bees. But Greg is the 7th president of Broward College. He assumed the role on July 1st, 2018. Prior to his appointment, President Hill served as the General Counsel and Vice President for Public Policy and Government Affairs for Broward College. A career public servant, community leader, and accomplished educator, President Hill has championed community service in over 35 board or committee capacities and 20 chair president or vice chair president positions. I think I'm going to give that work. Since being recognized in 2007 by Gold Coast Magazine as a prominent South Floridian, he has been recognized with nearly 24 awards for his influence and commitment to the community. As an educator, President Hill has spent time in Cambridge, Massachusetts, teaching a self-designed 4-credit course in higher education law and policy at Harvard University Summer School. He previously served as an adjunct professor at Broward College, teaching business law and ethics, and with Miami-Dade College, teaching business law. In his previous position, serving Broward College, President Hill oversaw broad-ranging legal issues related to tax, immigration, employment, labor, copyright, real estate, construction, tenure, and FERPA. So you can pretty much talk to him about anything, including bees. He managed day-to-day regulatory challenges, provided counsel to support every aspect of college operations, and advocated before local political leaders, state legislators, the Florida Executive Branch, members of the House of Representatives and Senate, and the state and federal agency leadership to enhance their understanding of higher education issues and the impact of potential or pending legislation on institutions of higher education. Prior to joining the team of leadership at Broward College, President Hill had a successful career as a corporate litigator. Thank you very much. Everyone, please give me a warm round of applause as we welcome President Hill once again.
Thank you very much for that incredibly kind introduction. I was told I have up to 8 minutes, so we will not be talking about bees. I might have some other opportunities to do that. Thank you for the invitation to be here. One of the things that I really just wanted to focus on was what I know that we are filled with in this room is ambassadors for this community, ambassadors for Fort Lauderdale, ambassadors for Broward County. And I actually am somewhat of an outsider because, like many of you, surely, I was not blessed with the opportunity to be born and raised in this incredible community. I came here from New York. And if you know, at least even some recent data about the growth that's happening in the community, I know it was intimated earlier during the introduction, but we are looking at a 1.935 million person population. We're looking at a 2.1 million person population in just a couple of years. In 2022 is what we're looking at. If you ever break down that math, you're looking at 34 people a day moving to Broward County. That is extraordinary. That means between now and Friday, there will be nearly 100 more people living in Broward County. This is a beautiful thing about this community because there are folks all over the country recognizing the value of being here. When I moved here, I was living in New York at the time I was in law school. My wife was in graduate school. We were living together in Queens, New York. And I woke her up in the middle of the night. We were living in Finn at the time. And I woke her up in the middle of the night to fly her to South Florida to surprise her with a marriage proposal. We were in South Florida for 4 days. She said yes to the proposal. Very good. And then she said, we should move here. And I said, okay, let's do it. And that's all it took. Right? Just the aesthetic, just the people here made it that easy for us to make that decision. That is an incredible gift that we have, a very incredible organic gift that we have about being in this community. So as we see that growth, we know that we want to continue to nurture that growth. Another incredible point as you think about your ambassadorship for this community is, of course, I will not go without talking about the higher education community here in Broward County. Some of you know about us, but I won't help myself but to say a little bit. Broward College has about 63,000 students. We have over 160 programs. We have 45 different languages spoken among our student body and over 180 countries represented among our student body. It is incredible the diversity and growth that we see, but also the importance of the magic of the institution is not in those numbers. It is the recognition of our ability as an open access institution to take many students. Over half of our students are first generation college students, just like I was. They don't have friends and family that they can lean on to talk about the possibility of going to college. And so they come to us. And they may not come to us having great grades and all those other things that you might look for in academic prowess, but they're hungry. And they want to make a difference in their lives and to change the generation that comes beyond them. And so we get the opportunity to do that. And we get to take that first generation college student and mold them and give them the opportunity to see something that they may not otherwise see. They don't see the opportunities in aviation that we know are so important for us to talk about and help our economy thrive. They don't necessarily hear of the opportunities in health science and all the other dynamic fields that they could be exposed to, but for the opportunity to come to Broward College. And one thing I'm always conscious of is as you think about these students, our students, they do amazing things. They go off to great universities, both local and they go to Harvard. And then we have a lot of students who come to us and get their AS degree, and then they go and they start jobs making $50,000 a year or more after spending 2 years at Broward College. This is part of the reason that Broward College is the only institution in its sector nationally that has been selected from more than 1,600 institutions of higher education as a top 10 state or community college in this nation for the third time. I think that deserves a round of applause. We're going to continue to be a resource for all those in the business community, and along with our partners at FAU and FIU and Nova Southeastern University, we have an incredible group of higher education institutions working together to make this community the greatest that it can possibly be and lend every hand that we can. The other part about the ambassadorship, as we think about how we talk about our community, is that we are pretty relentless when it comes to getting better at what we do. Our unemployment rate today, who knows the unemployment rate? Come on, you all know it. 2.1. 2.8%. That deserves a round of applause. That is blazing. That is outpacing the nation. That is outpacing the state. That is outpacing our contemporaries to the south and to the north of us. We are doing incredible work because of many of you, because of our institutions of higher education. But notwithstanding that even, we continue to recognize where the opportunities for growth. So notwithstanding the fact that we have a 2.8% unemployment rate, there are pockets of our community. In fact, if you were to go 5 minutes north and about 2 minutes west, you'd be in a community that has about a 14% unemployment rate. And they don't know the beauty of Lauderdale, and they don't spend their time. But I've had conversations recently with many of you about finding ways to ensure that even those communities recognize the potential for a better life. And a lot of that comes through higher education. I know most of you won't argue with me on this, and that is the greater attainment that you have from higher education perspective, the more likely you are to have a better income, to have a better life. And there's no disputing that as you look at those areas with high unemployment, you're also going to find a correlative low college going rate in those communities. A data point I hope sticks with you. This doesn't speak to us locally, although there is some relationship, but nationally, 50 years ago, the bottom quartile of income earners had 6% of their kids going to college. And 50 years ago, the top quartile of income earners had 45% of their kids going to college. So we fast forward to today. That 45% among the top quartile of income earners has grown from 45% to 80 or 83%, depending on the data you're looking at. And that's great. The bottom quartile of income earners over 50 years has gone from 6% of their kids going to college to 9% of their kids going to college. So we are having some very healthy conversations in our community and around our country around the stratification of wealth and the income gap. But I don't believe that conversation should be educated from the stratification in education opportunity. That's an opportunity. That's where we coalesce, and I appreciate anyone who thinks we have that conversation. The fourth piece of our ambassadorship, and I'll close here, and I think I'm still within my time, is that I would put us against anyone, this county against any county, when it comes to our ability to compartmentalize our egos, to compartmentalize our brand, and all of our self-interest to identify where the opportunity is to get better. And it's not too far off from a press conference that happened a couple days ago. And we know that we have challenges in not just one community, but many communities. And we have some challenges that we're seeing for those who may be the most challenging among us. We have many out. And you're watching all these fantastic leaders come together. And maybe there are faces to this, and then there are those whose names you'll never see. And no one minds any of those things, because we do it better than anyone else when it comes to finding ways to come together, coalesce, and make a difference in our community. And we can be better if we are better, in my view, than anyone can. Thank you for your relentlessness and continued focus on making this the best county government we have in the
Thank you, President Hill. I'd like to invite Yvette Martinez on stage. She is with AARP, one of our incredible sponsors. So we're going to clap for her because AARP is helping us. Good morning, everyone. That was a great presentation by the keynote speaker. And I too am from Queens, New York, and am now in Florida. So thank you for this opportunity. And I hope that for AARP, I think most of you know that AARP is an organization. It's a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization for the 50+. So don't get scared when you see the card coming in the mail. We do a lot of great work around advocacy and community service, and as part of my role here in South Florida, I am one of the associate state directors that is responsible for doing the community outreach in both Miami-Dade and Broward County. And I currently live in Dade County, but I actually do a lot of activities in Broward and see the beauty and the opportunity there is here, and that excitement and energy that there is around making Fort Lauderdale more wonderful than it already is, and AARP is very happy to be a part of that. We're happy to be here this morning supporting this great event. And so without further ado, I'd like to introduce the next panel on marine industries. We have Heiko Deverkow, who is from the Riverside Hotel and will be our facilitator for that panel. We also have Paul Flannery. He is from the International Yacht Brokers Association. We have Megan Lagasse, who is from Pier 66 Hotel and Marina. Phil Purcell, who is from the Marine Industries Association of South Florida, as well as Jeff Woods, who is from Clean Core Energy Solutions. So I invite all of them to come join us on the stage. And let's give them a round of applause. Thank you.
right, I love it.
I'm the powder. So a wonderful good morning. Thank you for being here. I just want to take the liberty in thanking Capital Analytics. I had the pleasure already receiving the report, and it's robust, and it's pretty awesome. And if we thought last year's report was amazing, this year's content is just second to none. I also wanted to recognize a few folks in the audience. If you are a public elected official, would you please stand and recognize? Ken, what did we just talk about a second ago? What makes Broward different? What's the one word that I talked to you about? Collaboration. You know, President Hale, you are 100% right. This community is just very different on so many ways. And the collaborative efforts and putting your egos aside, and we said that, right? Putting the egos aside will propel us forward. Actually, I'm going to put a spin and put a mantra into everybody's head right now, because you are into bees, right? So your mantra today is be great up Fort Lauderdale. Just be great. Okay? Greatness comes from the youth that we develop, and I want to applaud Capital Analytics to invite our future leaders. We actually have classmates from Leadership Fort Lauderdale. So if you are a classmate of Leadership Fort Lauderdale, please rise and pray. Please stand. Thank you. That's our future, folks. That's really what it's all about. So I'm going to go right into this because I read two books, and I have some very smart people here, and they invited me. I don't know why, but I have some very smart people here. So it shows you how good I am. I still do post-it notes and write on them, whereas most people live in a digital world. And what did I write on this post-it note, Bill? Life is good in the marine industry. Life is good in the marine industry. And I just want to read one snippet out of the magazine because it's so profound. From global trade to leisure cruising, the economic impact of Broward's marine and logistics service continues to bode well for the region's international image. Despite turbulent trade deals, the major shipping companies have not seen any negative impact, and the region continues to be a logistic hub for trade with Central and South America. Fort Lauderdale International Airport introduces new partnerships this year, and the Port Everglades yet again surpasses its previous year's record in container passing, which is the first paragraph. Sounds pretty darn good, right? So if you think about it, we are a community that has 55,000 registered vessels, and out of those, we have about 2,000 of them that are 80 feet and longer. I am not one of the ones that have one that's a yacht of 80 feet and longer. But we just came of our Super Bowl, and I just want to ask that questions about our Super Bowl, which is the Fort Lauderdale International Boat Show. What did it bring to us today? And maybe Phil?
By all means,
start
I appreciate
you.
it. Thanks, Capital Analytics, and Heiko, thanks for hosting us here today. Also, the hotel is a great hotel, and it's also a legacy hotel in the industry, in our community, kind of like our industry. As is the boat show. So the boat show, this is 59th year of the Fort Lauderdale International Boat Show. And so when you think of it, I know a lot of times you see the bridges go up, you see a lot of traffic, the hotel rooms fill up, the people fill up, in the FBO side of life, they fill up on the commercial side of life. But what that means to the state is about $857 million of economic impact. Equally important, what it means is 52 countries came and participated in this show. We have 110,000 attendees that, the average net worth is 50% or 250,000 or more. And then over 1,100 of the people have a net worth of 20 million or more. It's really a diverse group from around the globe of entrepreneurs and successful business people that come to Fort Lauderdale, that are exposed to greater Fort Lauderdale, exposed to Broward County, and everything it has to offer. And so there is no other show like this in the world. It is the #1 boat show in the world for in water, and equally important economic impact.
Very nice. Now, how were the boat sales this year? Would you maybe talk about that a little bit? What did you see?
I had the pleasure of being able to spend this show on my feet walking around, as opposed to being in the back of a boat trying to sell it to somebody. So it was kind of a unique experience for me. It was the first time in 25 Fort Lauderdale boat shows that I was able to do that. The sense on the docks, the spirit on the docks was very, very positive. Everybody was very upbeat. There was a lot of activity. I can speak to one of the British builders that the leader of that group is a member of our board. Told me that they did $40 million worth of business at that show alone. In this community, the recreational marine industry is responsible for $11.4 billion worth of economic impact and 136,000 jobs. I know a really smart guy in this business who, in order to keep my ego in check, he allows me to wash his car every once in a while. That's Phil Purcell. He told me.
I have a truck, just so you know. Kind of looks, go figure. Everyone's going, really, with the jeans?
But the fact of the matter is, nothing happens until somebody sells a boat. Until somebody sells something, nothing happens. And then it all starts to cook from there. And that Fort Lauderdale Boat Show is a very, very important piece of that puzzle to make it all happen.
Megan, you have been entrenched in the Fort Lauderdale Boat Show for many years. What did you see this year?
I have been, and I just want to say, I know there's a lot of big numbers being thrown around, but on your table, you'll see, if you want to remember these, right on here on one side, on the orange side, it's all the numbers about the boat show. And then on the blue side is about the marine industry in South Florida. This is put together by Phil's team. It's an amazing card, and if you need more, we'll have to grab some more. But I think this year, the boat show was just reimagined. I am newer to Pier 66, but we're really trying to push every edge of the boat show and what Fort Lauderdale can handle, and it's really exciting. It created that buzz. It created that buzz through the entire boat show. The water taxi, the best way to get around the boat show, it really shows you what large vessels we have in Fort Lauderdale. It's just really exciting, and excited for the future of Fort Lauderdale and where it's going with the boat show.
And it's interesting, I talked to Bill Walker, and he had record numbers on water taxi. I mean, he was a great partner for the Fort Lauderdale Boat Show and getting everybody to and from the boat show and reducing the traffic actually on the beach as well. Jeff, tell me, you have a very unique business, and have you seen any interest other than just boats in your business and maybe even environmentally?
Thank you. CleanCore is a division of clean energy and power business of Seacor. Seacor is headquartered in Port Everglades. We're not well known in the community because we're an infrastructure business. We supply industrial, marine, transportation services within the port, the East Coast, and out into the Caribbean. So there are a lot of operations that go to supplying the infrastructure that we take for granted, and Seacor is part of that infrastructure. CleanCore is alternative fuels and energy. We have a liquefied natural gas business which supplies fuel to truck fleets, to agriculture, industrial customers, and to marine vessel owners. So there are about 2,000 trucks a day that go in and out of the Port Everglades, and truck emissions account for roughly half of the particulate matter emissions in the area. People will, what is that? I don't know what that is, but when you wipe that dark soot off your car, that is particulate matter, and that comes from diesel fuel emissions. we are putting together a program to help convert the transportation industry in Fort Lauderdale from diesel to natural gas fuel, which has essentially no particulate matter and lowers other emissions as well. So we also look at C-Corp as a whole and Clean Corp individually for the industry are looking at opportunities to convert marine vessels from diesel to natural gas fuel.
Very good. Now, are there opportunities, and this is for any of the panelists, are there opportunities to have more marine events in Greater Fort Lauderdale or Broward County? Not just our phenomenal Super Bowl, which is the Fort Lauderdale Boat Show, International Boat Show that we have. Are there other events that could actually attract economic growth and also more tourists?
I'll weigh in a little bit.
Okay.
That said, it's the collaborative nature that you talked about. And so when you have the right people at the table, and Broward County right now has all the right people at the right table and the right seats everywhere. And with that, so when you think of the alliance and the UDO and things like that, you have the right people helping to drive business, that helps. Then when you have private ownership step in, when you see like Pier 66 hands change to a gentleman like Joe Lewis, who has done great developments around the world, is also a boat. I don't know if you saw his boat. He's got a little blue boat that he parks behind Pier 66.
Yeah. Small.
But don't ever say that to him, right, Megan? Never say that little blue boat. That said, but when you have a guy with a net worth of $9 billion that loves our industry and understands the impact that it can do, and then you bring in Informa, which bought the promotional rights for all the boat shows. So we own the Fort Lauderdale Boat Show, the association does. But Informa stepped in. So when you have a company that's a $7 billion plus pound company that does over 700 trade shows a year, and guess what? You're redeveloping your convention center, and their office is you can throw a stone to the convention center. You think of the opportunities, yeah, there's a bunch. So, a bunch of people sitting at a table coming up with new ideas, there's always room for more ideas.
The Greater Fort Lauderdale Billfish Tournament has been a big draw for this area for a long, long time as well. I came from the sport fishing industry here in the South Florida area before I entered into the Eagle world of yacht brokerage. But there are many smaller events like that that contribute to the focus and the attention in the industry. One of the things that we do as an association is we promote professionalism and cooperation, and we try to do it through education of the network of the yacht brokerage community and networking within the yacht brokerage community, which is a very internationally based group. So bringing people to this community to educate them on the ways of our industry, promoting ethics, promoting professionalism, gives them more exposure to the Fort Lauderdale area as well. So it's not only huge things like the Fort Lauderdale Boat Show that have a massive impact, but there are a lot of small things that collectively as well as also.
Very nice. I want to just throw out another number, and President Hill, you're going to like this. 8.8 billion of annual impact and over 100,000 jobs. You talked about the 2.8% unemployment. It's something that goes, yep, that's pretty darn good, but kind of hurts too. Can you talk a little bit about the marine industry and the current job market? What's working, what's not? What do we have to do in order to propel and move forward and be Greater Fort Lauderdale?
So we work really closely with Broward College, Greg Hale, and his team. And so when you think of our industry, you think there's a blue-collar side that I look like. There's a white-collar side, and there's an entrepreneurial side. And the reality of it is our industry pays 28% higher than the state average. So if you can leave Greg's college and literally get into HVAC, which is heating and air conditioning, carpentry, which, by the way, we're all competing for that same employee. So aviation's another big industry. So they're trying to lure them into their industry. We're trying to lure them in the marine industry. But when you look at the size and scope and realize that Florida is the #1 state for boat registrations in the country. It is the #1 yacht. It is the yachting capital of the world. Hence, Fort Lauderdale is called that. So when you look at the opportunities and the entrepreneurs and the boats that come here to be serviced, there's tremendous opportunities. Whether a kid wants to go to college, whether they want to go right out and into a trade school, we have those opportunities. But we're competing with the rest of the community also.
And to add to that too, just breaking it down to a whole nother level too. A lot of people I know in this room, you may not go to the Fort Lauderdale Boat Show. You may not want to get anywhere near the beach when the boat show is going on. But I sit on a board with some people in the audience right now that we're doing a marine advisory board for the chamber. And one of the reports that I put together was a report on one 200-foot vessel that was in Fort Lauderdale for 60 days. This vessel goes all the way around the world. They stop with their owners all around the world, but they choose to call Fort Lauderdale their 60-day stop where they do all their work. In those 60 days, they spent over $1 million in Fort Lauderdale. Over $1 million in 60 days. And that is just on the boat credit card. That doesn't include the 30 crew. The 30 crew who work on the boat every day. At the end of the day, I don't want to sit in my office. I want to go out, go have a nice thing, something to eat. They go to our restaurants, they go to our bars, they get haircuts, they go to the gym, they rent cars. That is what Fort Lauderdale, we're the spot to stop. They want to make sure everything gets done, and they get it done right there. A 200-foot vessel, 60 days, $1 million for our community.
That's pretty amazing. And I'm going to throw something else out to all of you guys. We have some members of Career Source Broward here as well, and we work very closely with them. And it's interesting, apprenticeships. Not everybody may want to go down the route of academia, but there might be folks that want to go down the route of apprenticeships. And when you go down apprenticeships, how about making $30 an hour, $40 an hour, $50 an hour? Sounds pretty darn good, doesn't it? Now we're expanding the Port Everglades as well. What impact is that going to have? Are there going to be any infrastructure challenges that we have? We're only 1,000 miles away from the Panama Canal, and with the widening of it, we're in the perfect location, the perfect hub, right? Any thoughts?
Yeah, we're geographically superior. So at the end of the day, again, Broward County has that opportunity to great regionalism too. We sit between Palm Beach, we sit between Miami. Our airports are superior. You get out of an airport on the commercial side here, and you can get over to the beach, or you can get over to the port in minutes. Same thing from the FBO side, whether it's Fort Lauderdale Executive, which the city owns. That's the busiest airport for customs in the country. That's something we should be proud of. Equally important, the FBOs that's around Fort Lauderdale International. So we are, when you land in Miami, you've got 40 minutes to go somewhere if you're lucky, and that's at the middle of the night. Same if you land in Opelika. So, and we're not in competition with Miami. Miami is a compliment to us, or we're a compliment to them. But the reality of it is, a lot of it's built out. You're seeing the redevelopments happen here. You're seeing that port is a jewel for our industry, and it's a jewel from the commercial side. And so the recreation benefits from anything that happens there, and equally important, hopefully we have value on the commercial side.
I just wanted to maybe change to a not so sexy topic, and which is really preservation, which is really our conservation. And when I look at the third largest breed in our area, that's right up front at our doorstep, you hear all this.
Part of what I did, and it's our society today. We depend upon power, we depend upon transportation, we depend upon things like that. What we're coming to wake up and realize as a society today, as a culture, is the impact that has, and that we need to do things about it. Megan has a group over at Pier 66 called 4Ocean that does really great stuff with regard to picking up plastic. There are a number of groups out there that are focused on these water conservation, cleaning up of plastics, cleaning diesel particulates out of the air. All these things are really, really important, and they have a huge impact on our reef structure. And what we're coming to realize as a society through scientific work that's being done at places like Broward College and the Marine Research Hub here in Fort Lauderdale that Phil's very involved with, we're learning what an impact these reefs have on our lives as a whole. And it's critically important that we focus on that we think about that when we're making decisions business-wise, when we're making decisions recreationally. How does it impact what's going on around you? Kind of like you do as an individual. There's a thing called narcissism. Those guys don't pay attention to what's going on around them. But most of us don't suffer from that. Most of us are aware. We have peripheral vision. We know what's going on with the people around us and how our actions affect them. And that's important in our industry, to keep a big focus on that. And one of the things that I'm doing with the International Yacht Brokers Association is trying to identify the charitable cause that really makes sense for us to get behind and help to raise awareness and response for.
I go to your point on the research hub and to Paul's point. So the Marine Research Hub, was when you think of the boat show again, when you have 1,100 people land with a 20 million net worth or more. So when you think of electric vehicles, you have Elon Musk on campus. When you think of tech, you have Bill Gates. You have the guys that started that search engine with the funny name Google. They're all there. They're boaters, guys. They're in our community. But they also have family offices. And so what they've done is they have, if you go to Lake Union in Seattle, you'll see Bill Gates has 2,000 people trying to give 75 million. Jeff Bezos did the same thing. They're all in our space. And they come to the boat show. So what we did was working with the Alliance in partnership, and Bob Swindell and his team, we started the Marine Research Hub. So we sat with other universities, and, in addition to Broward, we sat with FAU, FIU, and NOVA. And they were the founders of the Marine Research Hub. And to get 4 presidents to sit down and sign an MOU is pretty hard. That said, Bob did a great job. He brought in the other 2 EDOs also. So when you look at the 3rd largest reef in the world, and I guarantee you, if we go and ask the kids, just in any of the schools, they're going to think of the Great Barrier Reef. You think of 6,000 species. If you're a developer, that's what protects our coastline. Regardless, it's this huge jewel that sits off our coast that FAU in the lab kills pancreatic cancer with deep water sponges. Think of if Steve Jobs' wife knew that. He died of pancreatic cancer. The guy who did Apple. FIU uses shark skin and on a scalpel stops the spread of MRSA in the lab. Paul Allen, who just passed, had a huge space in this. Gave $8 million thus far to FIU. NOVA grafts coral in the bone. And UM, when you think of hurricanes, no disrespect to our weathermen, they're wonderful people, but you could probably throw a dart at a board and know where it's going to land quicker than where they know. And that's a huge impact to our industry and to our lives every day. But UM's working on that. So we did the Marine Research Hub because you think of Florida, and Florida's a wonderful place, but what's the brand? First thing you go to if you travel, and I traveled a lot in my past life, they'll always go, do you go to the Mouse? I bet you gotta love being there at Disney World, huh? And it's great, but it's not an economic driver. This puts us at a level where if we were in Durham, we would tell everyone we're in the Durham Research Triangle or Silicon Valley. By getting the 4 universities to collaborate like this, again, collaboration and the Greater Fort Lauderdale Alliance, now we have a true brand that is moving in the right direction.
So I'm going to close with one question, and I would like each of the panelists to answer. And locally, economically, we're doing well. Nationally, we're doing really well. But there's going to be a slowdown in the economy. When do you think the slowdown is going to occur? How is it going to affect the marine industry, if at all? And so what are your thoughts on the economic slowdown that potentially is on the horizon? Jeff, do you want to go?
Sure, thank you. The infrastructure companies tend to see it first. And again, it's the quiet part of the economy, invisible to many of us, but we see it. We have a large business in Southern California supporting the exports of forage products to Asia. And we saw the slowdown starting in August with the tariffs impact to exports. And we see it with drayage truck fleets that we supply fuel to for use as a motor fuel. So it is happening, and the question is how much further will the slowdown go and how deep?
Very good.
The yacht brokerage community chooses not to participate in any economic slowdowns.
Not a surprise.
Despite the fact that we may get drugged into a few here and there. We experienced a little bit of a challenge a few years ago. You may remember 2009, 2010, 2011, 2012. And what we found in the yacht brokerage community, it significantly impacted us as it did everyone else. But whether markets are rising or markets are falling, somebody's got to be in the middle to facilitate what's going on. So that was the one saving grace for us, is that we are the middlemen. As far as predictions, we're discretionary spending in its entirety. That's all we do. We deal in luxury goods. We do feel an impact early in the game. Like you said, Jeff, people stop spending on boats quickly. It's the first thing to go. The crew is actually the first thing to go. The second thing to go is the boat. But we also, through our educational efforts, we try to round out our members' awarenesses of what's going on, not only professionally, but forecasting-wise, so they can be prepared. And we bring in financial pundits from Wall Street, places like that. The indications that we've been given from some of the people that we've invited in is that 18 to 24 months of robust movement ahead of us, and then we'll see some slowdown. The anticipation isn't for a precipitous drop like we saw several years ago, but it's got to change. It's got to change. We need to be more prepared for that. I think a lot of us learned very valuable lessons in 2008 going forward to be more prepared and smarter about how we're doing things going forward.
Megan, your thought?
I would just agree with Paul, just saying that when that happens, the yachts end up not moving. So my goal is to make sure that they stay in Fort Lauderdale to help our economy going. So we it's just being prepared, and we are very fortunate that we work with high net worth individuals, and like Paul said, the boats normally just change names, and I know Phil can talk about this too. The next couple of years, there's a lot of large vessels in yards right now getting ready to be launched. So that says something that we're still getting ready for a couple more big boats to come out, which is huge for our economy.
Very good. Phil?
I think it's often said, I don't have a crystal ball, but
Yes, you do.
But the reality of it is, as Paul said, whether you're buying or selling, if someone's selling, someone else is buying for a new price. In terms of us, we're refit and repair. Big boats require refit and repair all the time. You still have to maintain it, just like a jet. You can park it for a while, but you're still going to have to maintain it. We are a hub. Per what Greg gave statistically, how many people move here to Broward, we're a state of 19 or 20 million people now. In the next decade, we're going to be 25 million people. I would assume if you look at the math on that, to how many registered people we have in the state, percentage-wise of boats, 5% of them buy boats. I think the industry will power through it like it did last time, and equally important, I talked to Bob Tony, who's in the audience here, and I asked him if his business is robust. And when he says it's different now, and it's not, the banks are not turning boats over, I think they changed their credit qualifications.
Well, as you all can see, the marine industry is doing well. Life is good in the marine industry. I really want to thank our panelists, Megan, Paul, Jeff, and Phil, for their informative session today. And I'm going to close with your mantra, be great at Fort Lauderdale. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
If we can give that panel or marine panel another round. $1 million for 60 days. That was a good impact, I think.
For many reasons.
And then, so I'd like to thank our sponsors again, of course, AARP, and thank you to my mother who also signed me up for AARP. So you can get an AARP card before you reach the AARP age, and you get a lot of discounts, so it's not a bad thing. Like, get your AARP card. Be happy when you get it in the mail. But thank you to BB&T, Brightline, City National Bank, City of Lauderhill, City of Pompano Beach, Crea's Energy, First Service Residential, Greater Fort Lauderdale Alliance, Greater Fort Lauderdale Chamber of Commerce, Green Spoon Martyr, John Knox Village, Riverside Hotel, Secor, and the Las Olas Company, of course. Now, I'd like to let us get started into our Smart Development panel. I think that's a great and very interesting topic right now that's kind of top of mind with everyone. We spoke with a lot of executives about smart development this year. So I'd like to bring on our moderator, Barry Sommerstein from Green Spoon Martyr, Monica Sepro from Broward County, David Diesel, First Service Residential, Dev Motwani, Merrimack Ventures, and Greg Stewart, the Broward Metropolitan Planning Organization. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming this morning. This must be an interesting discussion because it's now 9:30. We've had breakfast and we're still sitting here. So thank you for listening to us. I was wondering how I became moderator and then realized after seeing Heiko there's two qualifications. So one, you have to have a goatee, and the other is you have to be technologically challenged and you need a piece of paper to remind you what you're going to ask this question. So he has little post-it notes. My eyes aren't as good as his, so I'm going to work with paper. We're fortunate to have a very good panel this morning from the government sector and from the private sector to talk about smart growth. The question, there's all these buzzwords you always hear, different aspects of the economy, and smart growth itself is a buzzword that has different meanings to different people. I've always thought of smart growth as, kind of urban planning to kind of concentrate development in the central area and avoid urban sprawl. You're technologically challenged. I am definitely technologically challenged. Well, you were fortunate you didn't have to listen to what I said before. But what is smart growth? And as I was saying, it's a buzzword that has different meaning to different people. I've always thought of it as urban planning to kind of avoid urban sprawl. So I'm going to start the discussion actually with David and Greg and Monica and Deb also, but primarily Greg and Monica, if you could tell me, what do you think smart growth planning and smart growth is, and how is it being utilized in Broward County?
Challenge doesn't matter.
Welcome to the group.
It's contagious. Good morning, and thank you for hosting us this morning, Riverside and Capital Analytics and Invest. So we had some conversations about this earlier, and the smart growth, I think it's it's kind of a boring document, but the land use plan for the county really hits on 7 regional countywide issues of importance, and it's laid out there, and it's an integrated, proactive approach. The buzzword we've talked about this morning is collaboration, and we've seen it very successful in the county, and we work with partners, both private and public, our state, NPO, federal, municipalities, and it's critical to really integrate and have those conversations and bring the funding, and the county's role is really about policy and programs, and we help integrate that with the private sector and our public partners. So everything from affordable housing, multimodal transportation, climate change resiliency, all of these things are pre- and post-disaster planning, intergovernmental partnerships. All of those things are outlined, and they're all critically important.
You look at yourself as a data collector and a quarterback with this information to get the information out to the other aspects of government and the private sector? Or what is the government's role in dealing with smart development, and how do you start to implement it? Greg, maybe you can answer.
I'm going to hit on that really hard. We collect data all the time, and that's actually one of the biggest areas that a metropolitan planning organization will do. We typically track trends over decades and understand the development that's actually occurring. When the original Metropolitan Transportation Plan was done for Broward County, there was about 800,000, 700,000 people in this county. Well, actually, in the US, it was 500,000 people in the county. I'm going to think about that. It was 5 cities, basically. And that laid out 595, which was called the Port Everglades Expressway. It laid out 75 going down into Miami-Dade. It laid out the Sawgrass Expressway, soon to connect to I-95. It laid out all of these areas, and it laid out what a mass transit system was going to look like. All of that data existed back in the early 70s, late 60s. It was developed. The land use pattern that you see, whether it was unincorporated at the time or now incorporated, all that laid out and spelled out what type of future we're going to live here in our community. And I think that's where that data analysis drives so much. We can get down to the household trip, the household data. I know how many homes and how many people are going from here to Miami-Dade and where in Miami-Dade they're going. And I don't want to say we're kind of like the NSA, but we actually have a lot of information that we share with our partners, whether it be Broward County government or even the private sector. And we're like, okay, well, here's what we're seeing. Here's the trends that you're going to be able to find. That is spelling out what actually I think what you're trying to say was smart growth and the whole idea. Because for us to grow now, we're built out. So that whole idea of what type of growth is going to be is not laid out in that 72 plan anymore. Now it's where do you put additional development? Where are you going to put an additional almost 1 million people moving to Broward? I mean, if we continue doing a great job like the Alliance has been doing with actually bringing in business, we need to have housing. There's going to be rooftops that need to follow all of that. So all of this is going to be kind of a neat way, but that whole big data, and data is going to drive everything, whether it's transit ridership, roadways, capacities, or even where development is going to occur in downtown Fort Lauderdale. All of that is actually driven by direct data.
Let me ask you a question on the topic of data. They're putting out the data. You in the development area, that data has got to be critically important to help you decide how you're going to invest, what you're going to develop. How has that helped you in your development program around the county?
Sure, yeah. The information that we get from our partners in the public sector is obviously critical for us making decisions. You know, the typical development project takes about 7 years. Most people don't think of a project starting until you see a shovel in the ground, but usually there's about 3 to 4 years of planning in advance of that. So we're making long-term decisions and long-term investments, and so we can't do that without having real-time data. It's interesting what Greg talks about in terms of smart growth, because the nature of the data that we need in development is changing. It used to just be, as the county was growing west, you knew where the roadways were going, so you bought a piece of land, you put in infrastructure to build single-family homes. But we're now fully built out, and there's very few plots of land where you're building single-family houses. So now we're going vertical. And so the data that we need is different in terms of how do people get not only to our projects, but how do they get out of our projects. Infrastructure is obviously critically important. Can we service the density that we're talking about? And so the nature of that data is changing over time in terms of what's valuable, especially as we've fully built out. So transportation is probably the most critical component as Broward County as we continue to grow. We obviously the county was successful in passing the penny sales tax to create $16 billion over 30 years. So it's an exciting time because that's a lot of money. So we have, quite frankly, some big challenges ahead, but now we also have a big pot of money to help solve those. And so, I think it was time that we did it. I'm glad the county took the initiative and had the foresight to push that forward. I'm glad the citizens and the voters passed it. But now we got to start doing the hard work. So, Greg, Monica, good luck.
I think what Deb is saying is he wants a check before he leaves today.
He knows better.
Part of smart growth, though, is dealing with concentrating development to avoid urban sprawl. And I think we've realized that we can't just build roadways and add another lane and expect traffic to get better. It's kind of counterintuitive, but it doesn't help. So could you explain what the county and government is doing and working with developers to deal with smart growth as opposed to just building more roads? And the second part of that question is, how is it being funded? I know we have the penny sales tax, but what portion of that is going to be allocated to what I would consider smart growth as opposed to just expanding roadways? Issues like signalization, creating connectivity to our rail system, other mass transit. Can you explain to everybody what's being done in that regard?
Sure, and you pretty much hit on most of the areas there. So it's a multifaceted approach, as everyone can imagine. It is obviously the connectivity. So it's not just the roads, but it's also additional buses. It's additional routes. It's the smart grid, if you will, the connectivity as far as the integration of the signalization. All of those things we're upgrading, and we have plans to upgrade over the next 30 years. I will tell you, even though you said it's $16 billion, and it is over 30 years, but that first year, I think we're going to be realizing about a little over probably $350 million is what the estimates are for the first year of the collection of the surtax. So right now, as I'm sitting here, our team is sitting back at County Hall working on plans for a robust, integrated, and collaborative group of not just government folks, but private sector folks to try to wrestle around the infrastructure internally of what we're going to, how we're going to lay out those plans of using those funds right away and the best use for those funds. So it's going to be hitting on all of those areas, Gary. And it's just there's not one size or one approach that can fix this. Now, what you said, we're not fully built out, but from our perspective, like you said, we have to go vertical, and so those present a whole host of other challenges. So we are working with our environmental protection group to work with the private sector as well and developers to address all of those things. And when we talk about affordable housing, the corridors, all of that, all the funding is going to from the surtax is going to help a lot with that as well, because it will be, like I said, a multifaceted approach for the affordable housing issues that we have in the transportation corridors. So I think there's a lot of opportunity that we look forward to partnerships with the private sector to try to tackle this in every direction we can.
I'm going to ask this to all the members on the panel here. Where in the county do you see the most productive smart growth areas percolating?
Wow. Nobody else wants to answer, huh? I don't know. I think we have pockets of some great smart growth happening. I mean, it's different. Downtown Fort Lauderdale, you have different issues than you do in, let's say, downtown Pompano, which there actually is a downtown Pompano. Downtown Pompano now, thanks to, I saw Kim Briesmeister earlier, RMA, and her great team that really led that initiative for many years. So you're starting to see the beginnings of growth where you have retail and you have services to encourage a population. In Fort Lauderdale, you already have a downtown population that continues to grow. There were efforts 30 years ago by guys like Terry Stiles, and Steve Helmos, and others who made investments when we didn't have a downtown or a true downtown. And we're now realizing the benefits of that, but also the challenges. And so they're different. I'm tripping over Lime scooters like anytime I walk in the downtown now, right? So, so that's a new phenomenon. But you're also, we're doing stuff out in Plantation, and so, or even and we had project in Pembroke Pines, where you're starting to see city centers form, and so we are starting to see pockets of density where you have retail, hotels, commercial activity, and then as Monica said, now you've got to connect those nodes, and that's the piece that's missing, and that takes money. So now hopefully we have that, and we can start doing an urban plan county-wide, or a land use plan. But really connecting these urban cores.
Thank you, Dev. If I could build off that, what we see more than anything else is choices that homeowners make when they come to live in Broward County. So it is the diversity. The pockets Dev just spoke about, our job is to bring that brand vision to life. And what we do in managing communities is make sure we activate the lifestyle. So as these communities are being built, you've all made choices as to where you want to live. And it is that lifestyle choice. If you're right here on A1A, right on the waterfront, you care about different things than you do if you live out in West Broward, that Deb just mentioned. So our role, what we are seeing is that homeowners, all of you, residents, truly make those decisions based on the lifestyle that you want. And it's not that straightforward. The scooters, I did nearly get run over last night as well. But where I live, it's more about dog walking. And what does smart development mean? It means understanding why people are choosing to move to Brown. What are those lifestyle choices, and how do you balance that as a developer? And then how do you actually make that happen, make that real for all the homeowners? Deb talked about a 7-year life cycle in a project. Really, it's how early do you bring in operational expertise to understand that and bring that vision to life, so all of us choose to remain here in Broward to realize that vision.
Well, let me ask this to Deb, you're building the product, and David, you're managing the product. So smart growth has also the aspects of smart development and smart design, at least from the development point of view. What are you seeing being done in development today that wasn't done a few years ago to deal with what we call smart growth, things like technology and dealing with dealing transportation and making lifestyle and sustainability of the product a better place to live, work, and play? What do you think?
Certainly. So if you think back to, was anyone here 10, 15 years ago? High-rise development, yeah. So the evolution, think about your own lives in the world you live in today. And I focused on luxury high-rise development. Previously, remember panels in high-rise development? Today, consumers, what we're seeing is building for things like EV charging stations, in particular with the new legislation that's just come into play. So as these developments are happening, the move to develop more sustainable, but also understanding where the trends are, parking and understanding how with EV charging stations and other trends within the overall building management. The other side of it is what we have seen is that homeowners, consumers want to make their own technology choices within units. So rather than development happening where they can, the old panels I just mentioned, today it's about being able to have your own smart building, your own technology within units. People make choices across multiple apps themselves to allow homeowners the freedom. What we see within buildings is homeowners still want to interact on a phone. We all connect with people through our mobile devices today. So what are the service levels within those communities that enable that and allow that within the whole building and the community? And we see the same thing if you think back to homeowners who choose to live in a lifestyle community out in West Point. What does that lifestyle look like? It's very different from a luxury high-rise condominium. There it's more about community, how do clubs, people connect with each other within those communities.
Yeah, this question always gives me anxiety when we talk about smart development, and because technology is changing so fast. If you think about it, if I'm designing a building right now that I know is going to be delivered in 7 years, I have no idea what technology is going to look like in 7 years. And even when I start construction and I know I'm delivering in 2 to 3 years, it can even change within that cycle. So it used to be, okay, you're putting in Cat 4 cables, Cat 5 cables, and it was hardwiring, right? Well, now we don't talk about that. I saw my friends in hot wire communications here, right? Like we're talking about everything's IoT now, so you need to have, what kind of Wi-Fi do you have and what kind of service level can you provide, and that's just growing exponentially. So the hardware that we're buying for a project now is obsolete in 2 to 3 years. So it presents some great opportunities in terms of smart development, energy efficiency, right? You put nests everywhere. You don't have ACs running all day. That brings down operating costs. It's better for the environment. That's all great, and it certainly does help in some ways. But when you're delivering particularly luxury product, whether it's a hotel, condos, or luxury apartments, we're trying to make decisions for technology that may not even exist, or it's certainly not commercially available. So it presents certainly a lot of benefits, but it also presents a lot of challenges as we try to plan these projects and get them out of the ground and then hopefully make them successful.
Now we talk about the positive aspects of smart growth, smart development, concentrated development. We see what's happening downtown Fort Lauderdale. It's really terrific to see all this vibrancy and growth. But there's the other side of the positives, and that are how do we deal with the fact that with that growth is coming increased costs of product that's forcing a lot of people not to be able to afford to live in some of these smart growth communities because they're getting priced out of the market or that the infrastructure is not there. What are we doing to address those concerns?
So we're going to tag team. I'll do housing, he'll talk about transportation. So, you know, from the county's perspective, one of the priorities of our county commission has been really a strong focus now on affordable housing, and as part of the economic development integration of the community, really, because as one of the previous speakers talked about, a couple, I think Greg mentioned it, talking about a couple blocks away and 5 minutes away, and we have tremendous high unemployment and a great affordable housing problem. So part of the integration of what we're hoping to accomplish is to have more resources through the surtax also to provide some additional opportunities there. But, we have provided funding and the policy, laying out the policy for funding with the charter provision that just was adopted as well for an affordable housing trust fund. So there's a tremendous amount of focus on that, and we're hoping that with these partnerships that we have, that there'll be some success stories there. Additional developments, additional units within existing planned developments. And so with the transportation corridors, I think there'll be some success there.
So when you focus on transportation and then you talk about affordable housing, they're linked together. And the whole thing that makes housing expensive is ultimately how do you get to your job, where is your job at, where are you going to recreate, where are you going to play, and how do you get around. So the whole idea of these corridor type development, that actually buys down the cost of housing. Because right now, how many of you, all right, two-person households, how many of you in two-person households are living? How many of you have at least 2 cars? All right, now think about that for a second. If we could get 50% of those of you who raised your hands to say, I only have 1 car, then what does that do to your income? If we change the way your spending pattern actually works, there's only so much government can do on incentive. I mean, we could buy down some of the unit costs. You can play the game like I did before I came back to Broward. I used to work in Boston. And we used to do these things called 30-30, 30-10. And it was 30 market, 30 affordable, 30 workforce, and then 10% retail. And that was going to solve Boston's problem for affordable housing. For those of you who go back up there every once in a while, Boston's a really expensive place to live. So, that's not going to solve the problem. Government will not be able to solve the problem by investing more governmental dollars into development. Where we can solve some of the problems is buying down the overall daily cost that you all have to live. And that's going to be the area where transportation, that nexus comes together. And, the Broward MPO, we're responsible for we do a little bit, $1.3 billion a year in transportation investment in Broward. So at $350 extra million, don't get punch drunk crazy. It's not going to go that far. But the big picture with that is we already make a significant investment. Now it's what that investment actually is going to look like with this added fund. And depending on where the county makes their decisions on their spending programs and how this works, does that buy down the cost of housing? And that's actually one of the formulas we're going to be working with the county, with the cities, and say, all right, if this project is approved and we put federal and state money into it, will this achieve other greater goals? And that goes to really the smart growth tied to affordable housing.
Greg, one more question I want to follow up on. You can answer it. As far as transportation and those dollars you're spending, forgetting the road improvements that you're making, but what's being done on the technology front by way of signalization, tying into driverless cars? I keep hearing that once driverless cars become perfected, that's really going to help our traffic problems. Tell us a little more about that.
All right, first, dispel that rumor. Driverless cars will only have more cars on the road. So they'll be driving around just all the time instead of parking in parking garages. Think about that for a second. But that said, the technology side, just like it's doing on the residential front, it's changing so rapidly. We are not ready for where it's going. And every time we spend money, and we do a big investment with the Florida Department of Transportation in signalization on all the state corridors here. Everything from University Drive East, we've been laying the fiber, working with our partners, putting in the best technology we possibly can, having the county operate it, And that is actually where we've been doing a lot of investment. We actually see in the future where these corridors, and this is where road construction is still important, even with smart road, we're going to need to do things with our roads that are not necessarily areas where we're comfortable, where you all are comfortable at this point. We're going to have to do reversible lanes, bus-dedicated lanes, or one-way pairing of roads, overpasses, underpasses, things that don't typically go with the words smart tagline, but it's things that we're going to have to do to handle that future. And we're already putting those in place. Now that the county has the sales tax, we're hoping to merge the programs we've already been doing with Florida Department of Transportation and Federal Highway Administration and bring the county in to the fold, allowing them to have, every time you put a new smart signal system in, it requires people. People actually have to sit behind desks and monitor and see what's going on. So all of that is kind of where I see the sales tax up moving into. And then, the county's talking about, 600 new buses? So a 600 fleet. So basically right now there's 300 buses out on the road. And now we're talking about tripling that number. So I don't know about you, but a bus takes up the size of about 3 cars. So that is going to add traffic congestion onto our roadways. We're going to need to factor that in to the way our road design actually works, and working with the county and the transit agency the county operates to figure out how that all is going to tie together. It's a real complicated system.
So I don't want everyone to get scared and think that you're going to learn outside and there's not going to be anything but buses running around. So that's not happening overnight, so I'll just tell that. Tomorrow morning. No. So the other part that we have not really touched on in this is, and you alluded to it, Greg, was what that surtax will actually help leverage. So between state and federal funds. So we're talking a couple extra $1 billion that we're hoping to leverage. So that, going back to the collaboration and not just the private public collaboration and partnerships, but also the public-public collaborations that are extremely important.
That's a good topic. I'd like to maybe end on this topic. First, the issue of collaboration and public-private partnerships that I know Heiko talked about and Greg talked about, and Broward has been terrific in that. I want to make a shameless plug for the Fort Lauderdale Alliance because I think they're one of the best examples of a successful public partnership along with the county and the private development, including the collaborative for the homeless that was talked about. People working in Broward County very successfully to achieve the goals that we're trying to do, which is part of smart growth. What do you see as the successful public-private partnerships and those that have not been successful? Has anybody experienced unsuccessful private partnerships?
I'm going to hit 595 first because that's a really great example of a very successful B3. And you have to look at that project and go, that was $2.5 billion. It hit our economy right when we were at the lowest point. So part of that saved jobs within Broward and things were going forward. That I look at and say that's successful. The ridership numbers, basically that project's 15 years ahead of schedule on that corridor. So by leveraging the private sector in that was a really very successful project for us on the transportation side.
What do you think about what the DOT's involvement in public-private partnership, their intermodal facilities?
Well, I know, Barry, you have some thoughts on that.
Well, I just think that it's really, I'm just a moderator. I just want to hear from you. I don't want to get in trouble.
Exactly. DOT doesn't build residential development. If you try, government, and I was on the City Place side of West Palm Beach years ago on the government side. And that was a leverage that typically government doesn't do well. And if you look at the park and ride lots and the redevelopment potentials on the corridors on the Tri-Rail side and even the FEC side that are government owned, those are going to be the most challenging air pulling projects. That's why my hair went gray. So, because I was 30 when I was doing that. So you have to kind of focus on that and understand that that's not really government's bailiwick. And if you think that is, then you're going to be really sad.
I think we'll stop on the theory that there's a reason why they call it public-private partnership. The private sector has its involvement in those areas, and hopefully we can build on that. I want to thank everybody for talking today on an important subject of smart growth. I think we're going to see development change for the better over the years, but it's going to continue to need our collaborative efforts to make it happen. So thank you.
Thank you.